Sometimes the hardest battles we face happen when we're completely alone. Dana Crenshaw, 44 and 9 months pregnant, thought she'd left her painful past behind when she moved to a quiet town. When she calls 911 on a stormy night, whispering, "He's got a gun," police rush to her door expecting a violent domestic dispute. What they find instead changes everything. Dana is alone, in labor, with her late husband's ashes scattered on the floor next to an old revolver. The gun isn't loaded. It's just a painful reminder she kept from better days. Her grief had overwhelmed her so completely that in her most vulnerable moment, shadows felt real and memories became threats. Officer Martinez, who had lost his own wife, stays to help deliver her baby. By morning, something beautiful emerges from all that pain. But what could push a grieving mother to such terror? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning mist clung to Millbrook's cobblestone streets as Dana Crenshaw, 44 and 9 months pregnant, watched the world wake up from her apartment window. Silver threads marked her dark hair, and lines around her eyes spoke of both joy and sorrow. Her modest apartment above Mrs. Chen's antique bookstore had become her sanctuary after arriving 8 months ago, seeking peace from her previous life in Chicago. The wedding photograph on her nightstand caught the morning light, its silver frame cracked in a spiderweb pattern across one corner. Marcus Crenshaw smiled back at her from the image, handsome, in his navy dress uniform. Her anchor for 15 years, his sudden heart attack 2 years ago, had shattered everything she thought she understood about life's permanence. Dana made her way to the kitchen, moving carefully as her body prepared for birth. The coffee maker, decaffeinated now, provided comfort through routine. Marcus had always greeted mornings first, bringing her coffee with a gentle kiss. Now she performed these rituals alone, but his presence lingered in familiar patterns. Downstairs, Mrs. Chen opened her bookstore with the soft chiming of antique bells. The 73-year-old Taiwanese woman had become Dana's guardian angel, offering daily check-ins and maternal concern Dana hadn't felt since her own mother's death. "Good morning, dear one," Mrs. Chen called as Dana entered the shop filled with aged, paper and jasmine tea scents. "How did you sleep? Baby keeping you awake?" Dana settled into the chair Mrs. Chen had positioned for her daily visits. "She's been active lately. I think she's ready." Mrs. Chen approached with ginger tea, placing a gentle hand on Dana's belly. The baby responded with a kick that made both women laugh. First, babies take time, but this one has strong spirit. "Marcus would have loved this," Dana said softly. "He used to talk to my stomach for hours, convinced he could teach her to recognize his voice." Mrs. Chen's weathered hands folded in her lap. "Love doesn't end with death, child. It transforms. Your Marcus is part of this baby's story. You carry his love forward in every choice." Regular customers drifted through. Mr. Peterson seeking rare poetry, Sarah Mills from the library discussing vintage mysteries, Dr. Hartwell checking on Dana's health with professional kindness. Millbrook had embraced her differently than Chicago's corporate world, where she'd felt isolated after Marcus's death despite being surrounded by colleagues. At her afternoon prenatal appointment, Dr. Hartwell's Victorian office retained original crown molding and the comfortable atmosphere of a grandmother's parlor. The kind-eyed physician had delivered 3 generations of Millbrook babies. "Everything looks excellent," he said after examination. "Babies positioned perfectly, heartbeat strong. Another week or 2 at most. Feeling prepared?" Dana nodded uncertainly. "As much as possible for something I've never done. Mrs. Chen's been wonderful and I've taken classes. But you're nervous about doing this alone," Dr. Hartwell finished gently. "Completely understandable. Have you thought about who you'd like present during labor?" The question highlighted her isolation. Marcus's family relationships had grown strained after her move. His mother saw it as abandoning his memory. His sister Sarah lived across the country. Her own family remained distant, the card-sending type without deeper connections. "I keep thinking how Marcus and I planned this together," Dana admitted. "He was going to be my coach, my advocate. We practiced. Everything. Without him, I'm improvising." Dr. Hartwell's expression softened. "Some of the strongest women I've known discovered reserves of strength during labor they didn't know they possessed. Your body knows what to do. Trust in that." Walking back, afternoon sun painted the town golden. Children's voices from the park reminded her she'd soon join that world, no longer observer but participant in family life's daily rhythms. That evening, Dana sat with Marcus's ceramic urn on the coffee table, continuing her ritual of sharing daily thoughts with him. "She's coming soon, Marcus," she said softly. "Dr. Hartwell thinks next week. I wish you could see her, teach her everything you planned." Her hands cradled her belly. "I'm scared, not just about labor, but whether I can be enough when half of myself feels missing." Wind rattled the windows as she pulled her shawl closer. "Mrs. Chen says love transforms but doesn't end. I'm beginning to understand. I carry you everywhere now. Imagine your thoughts on every decision. Maybe that's how we do this together, through the choices I make for our daughter." Preparing for bed, she arranged pillows for comfort and checked her packed hospital bag. Before settling in, she returned to Marcus's photograph, touching fingers to lips, then to his face. "Good night, my love. Help me be strong for whatever comes next." The storm arrived without warning at 2:47 a.m., rain lashing against Dana's windows, while wind howled through the old maples lining the street. She woke to a sharp pain across her lower back, not the gentle Braxton Hicks contractions she'd grown accustomed to, but something more insistent. She breathed through it, counting seconds until it passed, then waited. When nothing followed immediately, she tried to relax, but sleep wouldn't return. The storm echoed the restlessness in her bones, a sense that something fundamental was shifting. Another contraction rippled across her abdomen, stronger this time. Dana gripped the windowsill, watching rain create rivulets down glass that distorted streetlights into abstract patterns. False labor, she told herself, but something felt different tonight, more purposeful. Unable to find comfort in bed, Dana moved to the living room, settling into her favorite chair where she spent evenings talking to Marcus. The urn containing his ashes sat on the coffee table, catching intermittent lightning flashes that made shadows dance independently, creating shapes that triggered overwhelming memories. A fierce gust rattled the building, and Dana felt vulnerability surge through her. Here she was, alone in a storm, carrying a child she'd raised without the man who should have been beside her. The weight of responsibility, manageable during daylight hours, felt crushing in the pre-dawn darkness. "Marcus, I need you," she whispered. To the shadows. "I can't do this alone. What if something goes wrong? What if I can't protect her the way you would have protected us both?" Another contraction, accompanied by sharp pain, made her cry out. In her distress, she knocked over the urn, and Marcus's ashes scattered across the hardwood floor like grey snow. The sight broke something inside her. Her last physical connection to him now spread across the room in meaningless dust. Panic set in as shadows seemed to move with purpose. Every creak of the old building became footsteps. Every flash of lightning revealed threatening figures that vanished when she looked directly. Her grief-addled mind transformed familiar surroundings into a landscape of danger. Struggling to her feet, Dana stumbled to the bedroom, where Marcus's belongings remained in a memory box she'd been unable to fully sort. Her hands shook as she opened it, finding his military decorations, wedding ring, and at the bottom, wrapped in an old T-shirt, his service revolver. She'd kept it not for protection, but as a reminder of his strength, his ability to keep them safe. Now, holding the cold metal in her trembling hands, she felt nothing but terror. The gun wasn't loaded, hadn't been since Marcus's death, but her emotional state made logic irrelevant. Thunder crashed overhead, and Dana was certain she heard breaking glass downstairs. Someone was in the building, coming for her when she was most vulnerable. The pregnancy books hadn't prepared her for this, facing labor alone while convinced danger lurked in every shadow. Her heart hammered as another contraction seized her, this one unmistakably real. Labor was beginning, and she was trapped between physical pain and psychological terror. The combination overwhelmed her ability to think clearly. With Marcus's ashes covering the floor and his gun in her hands, Dana felt his absence like a physical wound. He'd promised to protect them, to be her strength through childbirth, to help raise their daughter. Instead, she faced the most important moment of her life alone, convinced that malevolent forces were closing in. The storm intensified, and with it, her certainty that someone meant her harm. Every shadow held threat, every sound suggested intrusion. In her mind, the past was returning, not in memory, but in physical form, bringing all the pain and loss she'd tried to leave behind. She crawled to the phone, Marcus's revolver clutched against her chest like a talisman. Her daughter kicked frantically inside her, responding to the stress hormones flooding her system. Dana had to protect them both, had to get help, but who could she trust in this moment of complete vulnerability? The 911 operator's voice seemed to come from another world when she finally connected. 911, what's your emergency? Dana's voice emerged as barely a whisper, her breath coming in short gasps between contractions. Please, I need help. I'm 9 months pregnant and another pain seized her and she gasped. Ma'am, are you in labor? Do you need an ambulance? Someone's in the house, Dana whispered, though she couldn't be sure what was real anymore. I'm alone and someone's trying to get in. He's got a gun. The words tumbled out before she could stop them, her terror translating into the only narrative that made sense to her fractured emotional state. In her mind, the gun represented all the threats she couldn't name, all the ways she felt unable to protect herself and her child. Ma'am, stay on the line. Are you safe right now? Can you get to a secure location? Dana looked around the room, at Marcus's ashes scattered like evidence of violence, at the revolver in her hands, at the storm raging outside. Nothing felt safe. Nothing felt real, except the growing intensity of her contractions and the certainty that she was facing the most important night of her life completely alone. He's got a gun, she repeated, the words becoming a mantra that somehow explained her terror without requiring her to articulate the complex grief that had overwhelmed her rational mind. Please, hurry, I'm so scared, as sirens began to wail. In the distance, Dana clutched the phone and the empty revolver, her daughter moving frantically inside her, both of them caught between past and future, between loss and hope, between the life that was ending and the one about to begin. Red and blue lights painted the storm-soaked street as officers Martinez and Johnson pulled up to the antique bookstore. Martinez, a 10-year veteran with kind eyes and graying temples, checked his service weapon while his younger partner radioed their position. They'd responded to domestic violence calls before, but something about the pregnant woman's whispered terror had stayed with him during the drive. Possible armed subject, pregnant victim in distress, Johnson said, his hand on his holster. We go in careful, assess the situation. Martinez nodded, his mind already shifting into the protective mode that had served him well through countless dangerous situations. At 42, he'd seen enough domestic violence to know that pregnant women were often most vulnerable when their partners felt threatened by impending change. But something in Dana's voice suggested more complexity than a typical domestic dispute. They approached the building cautiously, rain soaking through their uniforms as they checked the perimeter. No signs of forced entry, no evidence of struggle outside. The bookstore's front door remained locked, Mrs. Chen's antique treasures undisturbed behind rain-streaked windows. Access appears to be through the side entrance, Martinez observed, noting the external staircase leading to the second-floor apartment. No indication of break-in, but we stay alert. As they climbed the wooden steps, Martinez found himself thinking of Elena, his wife of 12 years, who died in a car accident 3 years earlier. She'd wanted children, had dreamed of the family they'd build together. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was rushing to help a pregnant woman in crisis when his own dreams of fatherhood had died with Elena. Johnson positioned himself beside the door while Martinez knocked, identifying himself clearly. "Ma'am, this is Officer Martinez with Millbrook Police. You called 911. Are you safe? Can you come to the door?" Dana's voice came from inside, muffled and shaky. "Please, I can't move. Something's wrong. I'm having contractions and I'm so scared." Martinez exchanged glances with his partner. The fear in her voice was genuine, but where was the armed threat she'd reported? "Ma'am, we're here to help. Can you tell us about the person with the gun? Are they still in the apartment?" A long pause, filled only by the sound of rain and distant thunder. Then Dana's voice, smaller now, confused. "I don't know. Everything's mixed up. The ashes are everywhere, and I can't tell what's real anymore." Johnson frowned, hand still on his weapon. "Possible mental health crisis," he whispered to Martinez. "Could be drugs, could be pregnancy hormones, could be genuine threat hiding." But Martinez heard something else in Dana's voice. Not intoxication or mental illness, but the raw sound of grief overwhelming reason. He'd made that sound himself in the months after Elena's death, when reality felt negotiable and memories more solid than the present moment. "Ma'am, I'm going to try the door. If it's unlocked, I'm coming in to help you, okay? My name is Officer Martinez, and I'm here to make sure you and your baby are safe." The door opened easily, revealing chaos that told a story without words. Marcus's ashes covered the hardwood floor like gray snow, scattered from an overturned urn. In the center of the room, Dana sat clutching an unloaded revolver, her pregnant form trembling as contractions seized her body. No armed intruder, no signs of violence, just a woman so overwhelmed by grief and fear that reality had become negotiable. Johnson started to draw his weapon at the sight of the gun, but Martinez held up a hand, his instincts telling him this wasn't a threat, but a tragedy unfolding in real time. "Dana," Martinez said softly, holstering his weapon and raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "I'm Officer Martinez. You're safe now. Can you tell me about the gun? Is it loaded?" Dana looked up at him with eyes that seemed to be seeing through layers of time and pain. "It was Marcus's. He kept it for protection, but he's gone now. He can't protect us anymore." Her voice broke on the words. "I thought someone was coming for the baby. I couldn't tell what was real." Martinez knelt slowly beside her, his training warring with instinct. Protocol said secure the weapon first, but his heart recognized a fellow griever in crisis. "Marcus was your husband?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face as another contraction seized her. "He died 2 years ago. Heart attack. We planned this pregnancy together, but now I have to do it alone, and I'm so scared I can't keep her safe." Johnson called for an ambulance, while Martinez gently extended his hand toward the revolver. "Dana, I need to take the gun so we can help you properly. Is that okay? You're not in trouble. We just need to make sure everyone stays safe." She handed it over without resistance, and Martinez quickly checked the chamber. Empty, as he'd suspected. This wasn't about violence, but about a widow's terror at facing motherhood alone. He'd felt similar desperation after Elena's death, the sense that the world had become a dangerous place without his partner's presence to make it manageable. "When did the contractions start?" Martinez asked, settling beside her with the practiced calm that made him good at his job. His presence seemed to ground Dana, pulling her back from whatever dark place her mind had traveled. "Tonight, during the storm," she said, her breathing beginning to steady. "Everything felt wrong, like the past was coming back to hurt me. I know how crazy that sounds." "It doesn't sound crazy," Martinez said quietly, surprising himself with the admission. "Grief can make the impossible feel real. I lost my wife 3 years ago, and for months afterward, I kept expecting danger around every corner, like the world was punishing me for still being alive when she wasn't. Dana stared at him, recognition dawning in her eyes. "You understand." "I understand," he confirmed, as Johnson coordinated with emergency services and the sound of sirens grew closer. "And I understand that you're about to bring a new life into the world, which means you're stronger than you think you are." The ambulance arrived as Dana's contractions intensified, paramedics bringing professional efficiency into the emotionally charged apartment. Martinez helped her breathe through the pain, while EMT Sarah Walsh assessed her condition, checking vital signs and timing contractions with practiced expertise. "How far apart are they?" Sarah asked, her calm demeanor helping to ground the chaotic situation. "About 7 minutes," Dana managed between waves of pain. "But they're getting stronger." Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, her usually neat hair disheveled from sleep, clutching a robe around her small frame. She surveyed the scene, scattered ashes, uniformed officers, medical equipment, and immediately understood that her surrogate daughter was in crisis. "Oh, dear one," she said softly, moving past the paramedics to kneel beside Dana. "I heard the sirens. The baby is coming." Dana reached for Mrs. Chen's hand, finding anchor in the elderly woman's steady presence. "I'm sorry about the mess. About calling 911. I couldn't think straight, and everything felt dangerous." "Nothing to apologize for," Mrs. Chen said firmly, her accented voice carrying maternal authority. "Fear makes the mind play tricks. You did right thing calling for help." Martinez watched the interaction, noting how Dana's breathing steadied when Mrs. Chen arrived. Support systems mattered in crisis. He'd learned that lesson painfully after Elena's death, when he'd pushed away everyone who tried to help. "Ma'am, we need to transport to the hospital," Sarah announced after completing her examination. "Baby sounds strong, but first births can be unpredictable. Better to have medical support available." Johnson finished documenting the scene while Martinez made a decision that surprised him. "I'll ride with her to the hospital. Make sure she's settled safely." His partner raised an eyebrow. "Your shift ended 20 minutes ago, Martinez. I can handle the paperwork." "This one's different," Martinez said quietly, unable to fully explain the connection he felt to Dana's situation. Maybe it was recognizing grief's ability to distort reality, or maybe it was the way her fear reminded him of his own darkest moments. Either way, he couldn't abandon her now. Mrs. Chen gathered essential items, while the paramedics prepared Dana for transport. "I will follow in my car," she announced, producing keys from somewhere in her robe. "This baby needs grandmother present for arrival." "You don't have to," Dana started, but Mrs. Chen cut her off with a gentle but firm gesture. "Family helps family," she said simply. "You are family now." The ride to Millbrook General Hospital passed in a blur of medical monitoring and increasingly intense contractions. Martinez found himself coaching Dana through breathing exercises, drawing on half-remembered lessons from books Elena had optimistically purchased years earlier. "Breathe through it," he encouraged, as another wave seized her. "Don't fight the pain, let it do its work." "How do you know about this?" Dana asked during a brief respite, her eyes searching his face. Martinez hesitated, then decided honesty served better than deflection. "My wife, Elena, and I tried to have children for years. We read everything, took classes, prepared for something that never happened. She died before we could try the fertility treatments the doctor suggested." Dana's expression softened, despite her physical discomfort. "I'm sorry. Losing the future you planned is almost worse than losing the past you shared." The insight surprised him with its accuracy. Most people focused on Elena's death itself, but Dana understood the deeper loss, all the dreams and plans that died with her. "Elena would have loved helping with this," he said quietly. "She always said babies choose their timing for reasons we can't understand." At the hospital, Dr. Hartwell met them in the emergency department, his familiar presence providing additional stability. After examining Dana, he delivered both good and concerning news. "Baby's doing beautifully, but you're not in active labor yet," he explained. "What you're experiencing is advanced prodromal labor. Your body's preparing, but we have more time than we initially thought." Dana felt embarrassment wash over her. So I panicked over nothing, called 911 and traumatized everyone for false labor? Dr. Hartwell's expression grew stern in the gentle way he reserved for patients being too hard on themselves. Dana, you experienced a panic attack triggered by grief, complicated by early labor pains. That's not nothing. That's your mind. And body processing enormous stress. The important thing is you reached out for help. Martinez nodded agreement. Taking care of yourself is taking care of your baby. You did exactly what you needed to do. The hospital staff moved Dana to a comfortable observation room where they could monitor both her and the baby's well-being. Mrs. Chen arrived with a bag of supplies and immediately began creating a more home-like atmosphere, arranging flowers, and setting out the kind of snacks that somehow made everything feel more manageable. As the immediate crisis passed, Dana found herself able to process what had happened with greater clarity. The scattered ashes, the unloaded gun, the terror that had felt so real in the storm's darkness. All of it made sense now as grief overwhelming reason rather than genuine external threat. I keep Marcus's gun because it made me feel connected to his strength, she explained to Martinez as they sat in the quiet room. But tonight, holding it just made me feel more helpless, like I was trying to protect myself with memories instead of moving forward. Martinez understood the impulse. He still wore Elena's wedding ring on a chain around his neck, still slept on his side of their bed, still kept her coffee mug in the cabinet, though he'd never use it. Grief created its own logic, its own necessities. Maybe the real protection comes from accepting help, he suggested carefully. From building new connections, instead of trying to manage everything alone. Dana looked around the room, at Mrs. Chen arranging flowers with grandmother's care, at the medical staff monitoring her baby's heartbeat, at this police officer who'd stayed past his shift to ensure her safety. Perhaps Marcus's greatest gift hadn't been the gun or even the memories, but the example he'd set of how to love deeply enough to risk everything. I think you might be right, she said softly, as her daughter kicked gently inside her, responding to the calmer emotions now flowing through her system. 3 days later, Dana returned home to an apartment transformed. Mrs. Chen had enlisted the help of several neighbors to clean Marcus's scattered ashes with respectful care, placing them back in the ceramic urn with the reverence due to sacred remains. The hardwood floors gleamed, and fresh flowers filled the space with life and hope. Community comes together in times of need, Mrs. Chen explained when Dana tearfully thanked her. This is what neighbors do for each other. Martinez had stopped by twice during Dana's hospital stay, officially checking on her welfare, but clearly motivated by genuine concern. His presence had become unexpectedly comforting. Another person who understood how grief could ambush you in moments of vulnerability. I brought something, he said during his third visit, producing a worn recipe book with careful hands. Elena collected pregnancy and baby care advice from every grandmother in our neighborhood. She never got to use it, but maybe it can help you. Dana opened the book reverently, finding pages covered in Elena's neat handwriting. Remedies for morning sickness, suggestions for nursery organization, even notes about postpartum recovery, a ghost's gift of practical wisdom from one hopeful mother to another. She would have been an amazing mother, Dana said softly, reading notes about baby sleep schedules and feeding routines. She would have, Martinez agreed, but maybe helping you gives her care some purpose. Elena always believed love finds ways to continue even after death. The observation resonated deeply with Dana's evolving understanding of her situation. Marcus's love continued through her pregnancy, their planned child, even the financial security he'd provided through life insurance. Perhaps Elena's love could continue through Martinez's unexpected presence in their lives. Over the following week, an unlikely support system emerged. Mrs. Chen appeared each morning with nutritious meals and gentle conversation. Martinez stopped by after shifts, initially for official welfare checks, but increasingly as a friend who understood loss intimately. Dr. Hartwell monitored Dana's health with grandfatherly concern, ensuring both mother and baby remained strong. The nursery came together through collective effort. Mrs. Chen contributed hand-sewn quilts in soft pastels, their intricate patterns telling stories of patience and hope. Martinez assembled the crib with the careful attention of someone who understood the sacred nature of preparing space for new life. Dr. Hartwell's wife donated baby clothes her own grandchildren had outgrown, creating a wardrobe built from community, generosity. Dana found herself processing grief differently in this environment of support. Instead of talking to Marcus's ashes in solitude, she shared memories with people who listened without judgment. Mrs. Chen understood the complexity of loving someone who couldn't witness your greatest moments. Martinez knew how the future you'd planned could feel more real than the present you inhabited. Marcus wanted to paint the nursery yellow, Dana told them one evening as they put finishing touches on the room. He said it worked for either gender and reminded him of sunshine. I was worried it might be too bright, but looking at it now, it feels hopeful. He had good instincts, Martinez said, adjusting the mobile that would soon entrance Dana's daughter. Elena always said nurseries should feel like promises, spaces where anything good could happen. The comment triggered something in Dana's memory. Marcus used to say something similar, that our child's room should feel like the beginning of adventure, not the end of our freedom. She paused, her hands moving to her belly. I'd forgotten that perspective. Lately I've been so focused on what I was losing that I forgot what we were gaining. Mrs. Chen nodded knowingly. Fear makes us forget joy is possible, but joy is baby's birthright. She deserves mother who remembers how to be happy. As Dana's due date approached, she realized how much had changed since that terrifying night when grief had overwhelmed reason. The gun remained locked away, no longer needed as a talisman of protection. Marcus's ashes sat peacefully on their shelf, honored but no longer the center of her daily existence. Most importantly, she no longer felt alone in facing motherhood's challenges. The revelation came gradually, through accumulated moments of connection and care. During one of Martinez's visits, as they discussed practical preparations for labor, Dana found herself truly seeing him, not just as the officer who'd responded to her crisis, but as a man whose own loss had taught him how to recognize and respond to others' pain. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said as they arranged the hospital bag she'd need when contractions returned for real. "Of course," Martinez replied, his attention focused on ensuring everything was properly organized. "When you lost Elena, did you ever think you'd be able to care about someone else's happiness? Not romantically necessarily, but just genuinely invest in another person's well-being?" Martinez paused in his organizing, considering the question with the seriousness it deserved. "For the first year, I could barely manage my own existence, let alone care about anyone else's. But gradually I realized that caring for others was how I honored what Elena and I had shared. She taught me how to love generously, and that didn't have to die with her." Dana absorbed this wisdom, understanding that her growing ability to accept help and form new connections didn't diminish her love for Marcus, but expressed it in different form. Just as Mrs. Chen's maternal care created space for new family bonds, Martinez's protective presence offered security without replacing what she'd lost. "I think I'm learning that too," she admitted. "For months, I felt like moving forward meant leaving Marcus behind. But being here, with people who understand loss and still choose hope, I'm beginning to see that love doesn't diminish when you share it with others." Martinez smiled, the first truly unguarded expression she'd seen from him. Elena would have loved that insight. She always said the heart expands to accommodate new love, rather than displacing old love. As they finished preparing for the approaching birth, Dana felt a shift in her understanding of the future. She would always miss Marcus, would always wish he could witness their daughter's first moments, but she no longer faced motherhood alone or unprepared. Love had found ways to continue, creating new forms of family from the ashes of old grief. At 36 weeks, Dr. Hartwell's examination revealed what Dana had been both anticipating and dreading. "Baby could arrive any day now," he announced, his stethoscope capturing the strong, steady rhythm of her daughter's heartbeat. "Everything looks perfect. She's in optimal position. Your body is preparing beautifully. Are you feeling ready?" Dana's anxiety spiked at the question. Despite all the support she'd received, the prospect of labor without Marcus felt overwhelming. "I keep imagining how different this would be if he were here. We had everything planned. He was going to time contractions, help me with breathing, be my advocate with the medical staff." Dr. Hartwell's eyes crinkled with understanding. "Would it help to know that Officer Martinez has asked about being present for the birth? He mentioned that you've formed a support connection, and he'd like to fill that coaching role if you're comfortable with the arrangement." The offer surprised and touched Dana deeply. Martinez had become a steady presence in her life, but she hadn't considered that his care might extend to such an intimate moment. "He really offered that?" "He did," Dr. Hartwell confirmed. "Said something about how Elena had taught him that love finds ways to continue through service to others. I think he sees helping you as honoring both Elena's memory and his own capacity for care." That evening, Dana broached the subject with Martinez during his regular visit. They sat in the nursery she'd come to think of as their collective creation, surrounded by evidence of the community that had formed around her pregnancy. "Dr. Hartwell mentioned your offer," she said carefully. "I'm honored, but I need to understand why you'd want to take on something so personal." Martinez was quiet for a long moment, his gaze moving across the yellow walls Marcus had chosen. The mobile they'd hung together, the rocking chair where Dana would soon nurse her daughter. "When Elena died, I felt like all my capacity for protection and care died with her. But helping you has reminded me that those instincts don't disappear. They just need new purposes." He met her eyes directly. "I can't replace Marcus, and I wouldn't try to. But I can make sure you don't face the most important moment of your life feeling alone and unsupported. That seems like something both Elena and Marcus would want." Dana felt tears prick her eyes at the simple generosity of the offer. "It would mean everything to me. But are you sure you can handle the emotional intensity watching someone else's dreams come true when yours didn't?" "I've thought about that," Martinez admitted. "At first, I worried it might be too painful, but I've realized that witnessing your joy doesn't diminish my grief for Elena. It gives my grief purpose." She always said the best way to honor love was to create more of it in the world. The conversation was interrupted by an unexpected knock at the door. Dana struggled to her feet, moving slowly with the careful gait of very late pregnancy. Outside stood a woman in her early 40s with Marcus's eyes and his gentle smile. His sister Sarah, whom Dana hadn't seen since the funeral. "I know I should have called," Sarah said, her own eyes bright with unshed tears. "But I kept putting it off. And then I realized the baby might come any day, and I couldn't miss meeting my niece." Dana embraced her sister-in-law carefully, their shared grief creating immediate understanding. "Sarah, I'm so glad you're here. I wasn't sure if the family wanted contact after I moved away." "Mum's still processing her anger," Sarah admitted, honestly. "But I understand why you needed a fresh start. Staying in Chicago, surrounded by all those memories, must have been unbearable." Martinez tactfully excused himself, recognizing the need for family conversation, but Sarah stopped him. "Are you the officer who's been helping Dana? She mentioned you in her letters." "Officer Martinez," he confirmed. "I was the one who responded to her 911 call, and we've become friends since then." Sarah studied him with the assessing gaze of someone protective of family. "Dana wrote that you lost your wife, that you understand what she's going through." "I do understand," Martinez said simply, "and I want to help however I can." Something in his manner must have satisfied Sarah, because she nodded approvingly. "Marcus would be grateful to know Dana has good people looking out for her." Over the Next several days, Sarah's presence added another layer of healing to Dana's preparation for motherhood. She shared stories about Marcus's childhood that Dana had never heard, painting pictures of the man she'd loved as a boy, full of dreams and mischief. He used to build elaborate blanket forts and insist they were training facilities for future adventures, Sarah recalled as they organized baby clothes. He was always preparing for something important, some mission that required careful planning and dedication. That sounds exactly like him, Dana laughed. He approached our pregnancy the same way, reading every book, researching every option, creating detailed birth plans and backup plans for the backup plans. Sarah's expression grew thoughtful. He wrote letters, you know, during his last deployment, before you were married. Letters to his future children, explaining his hopes for them, his promises about the kind of father he wanted to be. Dana's breath caught. I never knew about letters. I have them, Sarah said gently. I've been keeping them, thinking someday when the grief wasn't so raw, you might want to read them. They're beautiful, full of his dreams for the family you'd build together. The revelation felt like receiving an unexpected gift from beyond death. I'd love to read them, Dana whispered. I want her to know what her father hoped for her. As Sarah retrieved the letters from her suitcase, Dana realized how much her understanding of Marcus's legacy had evolved. Initially, she'd focused on what was lost, his physical presence, his partnership, his ability to help raise their daughter. But now she saw what remained. His love expressed through financial security, his values that would guide her parenting, his dreams that she could help fulfill through their child. Martinez returned as they were reading the letters together, and Sarah invited him to join them. Family shares important moments, she said simply, echoing Mrs. Chen's philosophy of inclusive love. Together, they read Marcus's words about the father he hoped to become, the adventures he wanted to share with his children, the values he wanted to instill. His voice came through clearly in the careful handwriting, offering guidance and love across the barrier of death. A week later, while creating a memory book for her daughter, Dana made a discovery that changed everything she thought she understood about her husband's death. Sorting through Marcus's personal papers, she found a sealed envelope tucked inside. His military service records, marked in his careful handwriting, for Dana and our child, open only after my death. The envelope felt heavy in her hands, weighted with secrets she hadn't known existed. Sarah, who had been helping organize Marcus's belongings, noticed Dana's pale expression. What is it? Sarah asked, concern evident in her voice. Dana held up the envelope with trembling fingers. Did you know Marcus left letters specifically for me and the baby? Not the deployment letters, but something written after we were married? Sarah's expression shifted to confusion, then recognition, then something approaching dread. Oh, Dana, I wondered if you'd found that. I didn't know how to tell you, or even if I should. You knew about this? Dana's voice carried hurt and bewilderment. You knew he left me a letter and didn't mention it? I knew he was writing something in his final months, Sarah admitted carefully. But he swore me to secrecy, said you'd find it when you were ready. I thought maybe it was just his way of processing his feelings about becoming a father. Dana's hands shook as she opened the envelope, revealing several pages covered in Marcus's familiar handwriting. As she read the first paragraph, her world shifted on its axis. My dearest Dana, if you're reading this, then my time with you has ended sooner than we hoped. I need you to know that my death wasn't the sudden surprise it appeared to be. 3 months ago, Dr. Peterson diagnosed me with a severe cardiomyopathy, a genetic heart condition that was rapidly worsening. The prognosis was clear. I had perhaps 6 months to 2 years, depending on how aggressively the disease progressed. Dana sank into a chair, the letter trembling in her grip. Sarah moved beside her, offering silent support as the revelation continued to unfold. I chose not to tell you immediately because I wanted to give us the gift of hope without the shadow of countdown. But more importantly, I wanted to ensure that our dream of having a child together could become reality. The fertility specialist confirmed that pregnancy was still possible, and I knew that even if I couldn't be there to raise our baby, I could give you the family we'd always wanted. The room spun around Dana as she processed the implications. Marcus hadn't died suddenly. He'd been dying slowly, deliberately concealing his condition while orchestrating their final months together. The pregnancy she'd thought was a happy accident had been his calculated gift, a way of ensuring she wouldn't face the future completely alone. Martinez, who had arrived for his evening visit, found Dana and Sarah in the living room, both crying over the scattered pages of Marcus's final communication. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately, his protective instincts engaged. Dana handed him the letter with shaking hands. "Read it." Marcus knew he was dying. He planned the pregnancy knowing he wouldn't be here to help raise her. Martinez read quickly, his expression growing increasingly somber as he absorbed the letter's revelations. Marcus had detailed his financial preparations, the life insurance policies, the college fund, the careful arrangement of resources to ensure Dana's security. He'd planned every aspect of their final months together, creating memories while preparing for his absence. "He explains everything," Dana said, her voice hollow with shock. "Why he suddenly became so focused on pregnancy, why he insisted on updating all our insurance policies, why he wanted to take that second honeymoon to Hawaii. He was saying goodbye without telling me he was saying goodbye." The letter continued with Marcus's hopes for their child, his guidance for Dana about raising their daughter alone, and his blessing for her to find love again when she was ready. But the final paragraphs contained the most devastating revelation. "The heart attack that takes me won't be unexpected, Dana. I've chosen not to pursue aggressive treatment because I want my remaining time to be spent living with you rather than dying in hospitals. Dr. Peterson has provided medications that will ease the transition when it comes, but I've accepted that my genetic destiny can't be altered. My only regret is that I won't witness our daughter's first breath, her first steps, her first day of school, but I trust you to love her enough for both of us." Dana felt betrayed and grateful in equal measure. Marcus had robbed her of the chance to make informed decisions about their final months together, but he'd also protected her from the agony of watching him die slowly. He'd given her the gift of their daughter while bearing the burden of his diagnosis alone. "I don't know whether to be furious with him or grateful," she admitted to Martinez and Sarah. "He made massive decisions about our lives without including me in the process." "He was protecting you," Sarah said gently. "You know how Marcus was. He always tried to shield the people he loved from unnecessary pain. But it wasn't his choice to make alone," Dana protested. "I had a right to know, to help him through it, to make our own decisions about treatment, options and time together." Martinez nodded, understanding. "He took away your agency in order to preserve your peace of mind. It's a gift that feels like a theft." The insight was precise and painful. Dana realized that her grief needed to shift. Again, accommodating not just loss, but also deception motivated by love. Marcus had orchestrated their final chapter according to his vision of protection and legacy, leaving her to discover his script only after his death. But as she continued reading, finding his detailed hopes for their daughter and his carefully researched advice about single parenthood, Dana began to understand the magnitude of his sacrifice. He'd faced his terminal diagnosis alone, carrying the weight of mortality while creating the illusion of normal married life. His strength in those final months hadn't been natural. It had been heroic. He knew, she whispered, the full reality settling over her. Every moment of those last months, he knew our time was ending. Every conversation, every plan we made, every night we fell asleep together. He knew he was living on borrowed time. The revelation recast everything. His sudden interest in pregnancy, his insistence on financial planning, his determination to make their final months memorable. Marcus had been writing their ending while she lived in the story's middle, unaware that the climax was approaching. In the days following Marcus's revelation, Dana struggled to reconcile her understanding of their marriage with this new information about his hidden sacrifice. The man she'd thought she knew completely had carried a terminal diagnosis in silence. While orchestrating their final months together with careful intention, she felt grateful and betrayed, protected and manipulated, loved beyond measure and deceived with purpose. Martinez found her in the nursery 3 days later, sitting in the rocking chair and staring at a tiny outfit Marcus had secretly purchased, a coming-home dress in soft pink with delicate embroidery that spoke of a father's dreams for his daughter. "Sarah found this in his closet," Dana said softly, holding up the infant gown, "along with a dozen other baby clothes he bought without telling me. Even when he was dying, he was preparing for her arrival." Martinez settled on the floor beside the rocking chair, his presence offering steady comfort. "How are you processing all of this?" "I keep oscillating between fury and overwhelming love," Dana admitted. "Part of me is angry that he robbed me of the chance to care for him through his illness, to make informed decisions about our final time together. But another part understands that he was trying to give me the gift of normalcy, of hope, without the shadow of countdown." She traced the embroidery on the baby dress with careful fingers. "He wrote in his letter that he didn't want me to spend our last months watching him die. He wanted me to spend them living with him. I understand the logic, but I still feel like I was denied the chance to show him how strong I could be when he needed me most." Martinez nodded thoughtfully. "Elena and I talked about that scenario when we were trying to get pregnant. She made me promise that if either of us ever faced terminal illness, we'd face it together. She said she'd rather have painful truth than protective lies. But her death was sudden," Dana pointed out. "You never had to test that promise." "No," Martinez agreed quietly, "and I'll never know if I would have been strong enough to keep it. Maybe Marcus knew himself well enough to realize he couldn't watch you watch him die. Maybe his way of loving you was taking that burden entirely on himself." Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, carrying her evening tea tray, a ritual that had become comforting routine. "Forgive intrusion, but I heard voices and worried about Dana's state of mind." "We're discussing Marcus's letter," Dana explained, accepting the cup of jasmine tea Mrs. Chen offered. "I'm trying to understand whether his decision to keep his illness secret was love or betrayal." Mrs. Chen considered this with the gravity she brought to all emotional complexities. "In my culture, we believe love expresses itself differently through different people. Some love by sharing every burden, others by carrying burdens alone. Neither way is wrong. They are simply different paths to same destination." She settled in the chair Dana had positioned for her daily visits. "Your Marcus, he loved by protecting. You would have loved by supporting. Both impulses honor the marriage bond, but they create different experiences of crisis." The wisdom resonated with Dana's growing understanding of her situation. Marcus's letter had revealed not just his deception, but his character. A man who faced mortality by ensuring his wife's security rather than seeking comfort in shared knowledge of his fate. Over the following days, as her due date approached, Dana found herself preparing emotionally as well as physically for birth. The revelation about Marcus's sacrifice had transformed her grief from simple loss to complex appreciation. She mourned not just his absence, but the courage it must have taken to face death while creating life. Sarah stayed to help with final preparations, her presence bridging Dana's past and future. Together with Martinez and Mrs. Chen, they created a birth plan that honored Marcus's memory while acknowledging the new family structure that had formed around Dana's pregnancy. "I want to read one of his letters during labor," Dana decided as they packed her hospital bag. "Not the one about his illness, but one of the deployment letters to his future children. I want her to hear her father's voice, even if she can't understand the words yet." Martinez nodded approvingly. Elena always said babies recognize love, regardless of the language it's spoken in. The comment triggered another realization for Dana. You know what I've learned from his letter? Marcus didn't just plan our pregnancy, he planned our daughter's entire support system. The life insurance that brought me to Millbrook, the timing that put me here when Mrs. Chen could become her surrogate grandmother, even the crisis that brought you into our lives. None of it was accidental. Sarah looked thoughtful. Marcus always believed in comprehensive preparation. Remember how he researched every aspect of our parents' anniversary party? He planned contingencies for contingencies. Even his death was planned, Dana said with growing wonder, not just accepted, but orchestrated to minimize damage and maximize legacy. He turned his terminal diagnosis into a gift for his family's future. As her contractions began in earnest that evening, real labor this time, unmistakable in its intensity, Dana felt ready in ways she hadn't expected. Marcus's sacrifice had given her not just financial security, but emotional clarity. His love had been expressed through planning, protection, and ultimately through the creation of the support network that now surrounded her. Martinez arrived at the hospital as promised, bringing calm competence to the birthing room. Mrs. Chen and Sarah flanked Dana's bed, offering hands to hold and wisdom to anchor her through the intensity ahead. Dr. Hartwell monitored progress with grandfatherly attention, ensuring both mother and baby remained strong. "She's really coming this time," Dana announced as another contraction seized her. "After all these months of wondering if I could do this alone, I realize I'm not alone at all." Marcus made sure of that. The realization brought peace even in the midst of physical intensity. Her daughter would be born into a family created by love's foresight, surrounded by people who understood that caring for Dana meant honoring Marcus's memory through service to his child. Labor began in earnest at 3 a.m. on a clear October morning, 2 weeks before Dana's due date. The contractions arrived with unmistakable intensity, each wave demanding her complete attention as her body prepared for the monumental work ahead. This time, there was no confusion about false labor. Her daughter had chosen her moment with characteristic determination. Martinez arrived at the hospital within 20 minutes of Dana's call, finding her in the birthing suite surrounded by the makeshift family that had formed around her pregnancy. Mrs. Chen held one hand while Sarah gripped the other, both women offering steady presence through each contraction. Dr. Hartwell monitored progress with the calm competence of someone who had shepherded countless babies into the world. "How are you feeling?" Martinez asked, settling into the chair beside Dana's bed, where a birth coach would traditionally sit. Terrified and excited in equal measure, Dana managed between contractions. "But ready. After everything we've discovered about Marcus's planning, I understand that this moment was always meant to happen exactly this way." She wore Marcus's wedding ring on a chain around her neck, the gold band resting against her heart as she labored to bring their daughter into the world. Each time a contraction peaked, she pressed her hand against the ring, drawing strength from the physical connection to the man who had orchestrated this moment from beyond death. "Tell me about Marcus during contractions," Martinez suggested, remembering advice from Elena's pregnancy books about the power of positive focus during labor. "Share a memory that makes you smile." Dana's eyes fluttered closed as another wave began building. "He used to sing to my belly," she said, breathing through the intensity. Completely off-key renditions of classic rock songs, convinced that our baby needed to develop good taste in music from the beginning. He said he wanted her first memory to be her father's voice, telling her she was loved. Mrs. Chen squeezed Dana's hand approvingly. "Music is universal language of love. Baby hears father's voice even now, through your heart." As labor progressed, Dana found herself alternating between present awareness and memory-driven meditation. Marcus's presence felt tangible during the most intense contractions, as if his strength was flowing through her when she needed it most. His letter's revelation about facing death while creating life had reframed everything. He hadn't abandoned her to face this alone, but had spent his final months ensuring she would have everything necessary for success. "I can feel him here," Dana whispered during a brief respite between contractions. Not as a ghost or wishful thinking, but as the foundation he built for this moment. Every decision he made in those final months was preparing for right now. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face as she witnessed her brother's legacy taking physical form. Marcus always said love was an action verb, not just a feeling. This is his love in action, providing for a future he knew he wouldn't see. Dr. Hartwell checked Dana's progress and smiled with satisfaction. "We're moving along beautifully. Baby's heartbeat is strong and steady, and you're doing exactly what your body needs to do. Marcus would be incredibly proud of your strength." The comment triggered another wave of emotion that coincided with a particularly intense contraction. Dana cried out, not just from physical pain, but from the overwhelming reality that she was about to become a mother without her partner present to witness the transformation. Martinez leaned closer, his voice steady and encouraging. "Breathe through it, Dana. Your daughter is working just as hard as you are right now. She's fighting to get to you." "I wish Marcus could see her," Dana gasped as the contraction peaked. "He planned everything else so carefully, but he can't be here for the moment that matters most." "Maybe he can," Mrs. Chen said softly, her accent lending music to the words. "Maybe love finds ways to witness what it helped create. Your baby carries his genetic memory, his hopes, his dreams made flesh. In her, he is present for this moment." As the hours passed, Dana's support team rotated through different roles with practiced efficiency. Martinez coached her breathing and provided steady encouragement. Sarah shared stories about Marcus's childhood that painted pictures of the father he would have been. Mrs. Chen offered practical wisdom about birth and early motherhood, drawing on decades of experience with her own children and grandchildren. Dr. Hartwell monitored both mother and baby with careful attention, his presence providing medical security that allowed everyone else to focus on emotional support. The birthing room became a sacred space where past and future converged, where Marcus's sacrifice was transforming into his greatest gift. "I need to push," Dana announced as transition reached its peak, her body taking control of the process. With primal determination, the urge was overwhelming, undeniable, the culmination of 9 months of preparation. "Not quite yet," Dr. Hartwell said calmly, checking her cervix one more time. "Almost there, but let's wait for complete dilation. Your daughter is eager, but we want everything perfect for her arrival." Dana gripped Martinez's hand with strength that surprised them both. "Promise me something," she said urgently, her eyes searching his face. "If anything goes wrong, if I can't tell her myself, promise you'll make sure she knows how much Marcus wanted her, how much he sacrificed to make her possible. Nothing will go wrong," Martinez said firmly, his own eyes bright with emotion. "But I promise she'll know her father's story, his love, his sacrifice. I give you my word." The declaration seemed to release something in Dana, a final letting go of fear and full acceptance of the process ahead. Marcus had done his part by creating the foundation for this moment. Now it was her turn to complete their shared dream, to bring their daughter safely into the world he had prepared for her. "Okay," Dr. Hartwell announced with satisfaction. "Now we can push. Your baby is ready to meet her family." As the final stage of labor began, Dana felt Marcus's presence more strongly than ever, not as memory, but as active force, helping her find the strength necessary for the work ahead. His love was woven into this moment, inseparable from the new life about to emerge. The final stage of labor demanded everything Dana had to give, with Martinez holding her hand and providing steady encouragement. She pushed with determination, born from months of preparation and Marcus's sacrifice. Each effort brought their daughter closer to the world he had envisioned for her. "I can see her head," Dr. Hartwell announced with excitement. "Dark hair like her mother's. One more strong push, Dana." Dana bore down with intensity that surprised everyone in the room, including herself. The strength came from somewhere beyond, her physical reserves, from Marcus's love, from the support of her chosen family, from the fierce maternal instinct that had been growing alongside her daughter for 9 months. "She's coming," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face as she witnessed her niece's emergence into the world. "Marcus, she's really coming." With a final surge of effort that felt like moving mountains, Dana pushed their daughter free. The baby slipped into Dr. Hartwell's waiting hands, tiny and perfect and covered in the evidence of her journey from the protected world of the womb into the larger universe that awaited her. For one eternal moment, the room held its breath. Then came the sound that transformed everything, a strong, clear cry that announced the arrival of new life. Dana's daughter had found her voice, and it was magnificent. "She's perfect," Dr. Hartwell said with the reverent joy of someone who had witnessed this miracle countless times, but still found each birth extraordinary. "Absolutely perfect." Martinez felt tears streaming down his face as he watched Dana reach for her daughter with trembling hands. The moment Elena had dreamed of, the family he'd imagined they would create together. It was happening for someone else, but somehow that made it more beautiful rather than more painful. "Hello, baby girl," Dana whispered as Dr. Hartwell placed her daughter on her chest. "I'm your mama. Your daddy wanted to be here so badly, but he made sure you'd be surrounded by love." The baby quieted at the sound of Dana's voice, her dark eyes opening to focus on her mother's face with the startling alertness of newborns. She was tiny, but perfectly formed, with Marcus's strong chin and Dana's delicate features, a living bridge between past and future. Mrs. Chen approached the bed with reverent steps, her weathered hands clasped in front of her as she gazed at the newest member of their makeshift family. "She is beautiful, child, perfect combination of both parents. Marcus would be so proud. What will you name her?" Sarah asked softly, stroking her niece's tiny hand with careful fingers. Dana had been contemplating this decision for weeks, especially since discovering Marcus's letter. He had suggested several names in his writings to their future child, but one had resonated most deeply with Dana's understanding of their journey. "Hope Eleanor Crenshaw," she announced, looking directly at Martinez as she spoke the middle name. Hope for the future Marcus made possible Elena to honor the woman whose husband helped bring her safely into the world. Martinez's breath caught in his throat. He had not expected this tribute, this inclusion of Elena's memory in the naming of new life. "Dana, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do," Dana said firmly. "Elena's love brought you into our lives at exactly the moment we needed you most. Her recipes helped nourish this pregnancy, her dreams of motherhood helped guide my preparation, and her husband's caring made this birth possible. She's part of Hope's story." Hope Elena Crenshaw settled into her mother's arms with the contentment of someone arriving exactly where she belonged. Her cry had gentled to soft sounds of adjustment as she encountered air and light and the voices of people who loved her before they met her. Dr. Hartwell completed his examinations with quiet efficiency, pronouncing both mother and baby in excellent health. "She's a strong one," he observed. "Good weight, clear lungs, excellent reflexes. Marcus's planning extended even to her physical development. She's perfectly prepared for life outside the womb." As the immediate medical needs were addressed, the room settled into the peaceful atmosphere that follows successful birth. Hope nursed eagerly, her tiny hand gripping Dana's finger with surprising strength, while her dark eyes remained alert and focused on her mother's face. "She knows you," Martinez observed softly, "recognizes your voice from all those months of conversation. And Marcus's voice too," Dana said with certainty. "All those evenings he spent talking to her, singing his terrible off-key songs, reading deployment letters he'd written for his future children. She heard it all." Sarah pulled out her phone carefully, capturing the first photographs of her niece while being mindful of the sacred nature of these initial moments. "Mom will want pictures immediately," she said with a smile. This might be what finally heals the rift between her and Dana. Hard to stay angry when there's a grandbaby to spoil. Mrs. Chen had been quietly preparing the room for the transition from birth to new family bonding, adjusting lights and temperature with the intuitive care of someone who understood the needs of new mothers and babies. "First hours are precious," she said softly. "Time for family to learn each other, to begin the connection that will last lifetime." As Hope's first day progressed, Dana found herself marveling at how completely her understanding of love had expanded. The fierce protective instinct she felt for her daughter didn't diminish her love for Marcus. It fulfilled it, gave it purpose and continuation. Marcus's sacrifice had created this moment, this tiny person who would carry his legacy into the future he had prepared for her. "Thank you," Dana whispered to Martinez as he prepared to leave for a few hours of rest. "For staying, for helping, for honoring Elena's memory by caring for us." "Thank you," Martinez replied, "for letting me be part of something so beautiful." Elena would have loved Hope, would have loved seeing how love continues through service to others. As her first night with her daughter began, Dana felt the presence of everyone who had contributed to this moment. Marcus through his sacrifice, Elena through Martinez's caring, Mrs. Chen through maternal wisdom, Sarah through family connection. Hope Elena Crenshaw had been born into a community created by love's ability to transcend death and create new forms of family. 3 months after Hope's birth, spring had transformed Millbrook into a canvas of renewal. Cherry blossoms lined the cobblestone streets, and the morning light streamed through Dana's apartment windows with the warmth of new beginnings. She sat in the rocking chair Martinez had assembled, nursing her daughter while watching the town wake up below. Hope had thrived beyond all expectations. At 3 months, she was alert and responsive, with Marcus's determined chin and Dana's gentle eyes. Her laugh, a sound that had emerged just days earlier, filled the apartment with joy that Dana had never imagined possible during those dark months of grief. "Good morning, beautiful girl," Dana whispered, as Hope finished nursing and settled contentedly in her arms. "Shall we go visit Mrs. Chen and see what wisdom she has for us today?" The daily visits to the bookstore had evolved into something precious for all of them. Mrs. Chen had embraced her role as surrogate grandmother with the enthusiasm of someone who understood that family was created through care rather than biology. Her shop had become an informal community center where neighbors stopped to admire Hope and share in the joy of new life. Downstairs, Mrs. Chen was arranging fresh flowers while humming a Taiwanese lullaby that had become Hope's favorite. The elderly woman's face lit up as Dana appeared with the baby. "There is my precious granddaughter," Mrs. Chen said, her accent making the words sound like music. "How did she sleep? Growing so big, so strong, just like her father would have wanted." Dana settled into her familiar chair, now positioned to accommodate nursing and the practical needs of infant care. She slept through the night for the first time. "I kept waking up to check on her, couldn't believe she was actually letting me rest." "Smart baby knows when mama needs recovery," Mrs. Chen observed, offering her finger for Hope to grasp with tiny but strong hands. "First months are for learning each other, building trust and love that will last forever." The morning brought its usual parade of visitors. Mr. Peterson still searched for rare poetry, but now also brought children's books he thought Hope might enjoy someday. Sarah Mills from the library had become a regular, often staying to discuss not just vintage mysteries, but the practical challenges of new motherhood that no book fully prepared you for. Martinez arrived during his lunch break, a routine that had evolved naturally from his initial welfare checks into something deeper and more meaningful. He carried a small package wrapped in soft blue paper. "What's this?" Dana asked, as Hope reached immediately for the colorful wrapping. "Something Elena started making years ago," Martinez said softly. "A baby blanket she worked on whenever she was feeling hopeful about our future family. I found it last week while finally sorting through her crafting supplies." Dana unwrapped the gift carefully, revealing an exquisite hand-knitted blanket in soft pastels with intricate patterns that spoke of patience and love. Each stitch represented Eleanor's dreams of motherhood, her hopes for the children she would never have. "It's beautiful," Dana whispered, wrapping hope in the blanket and watching how perfectly it suited her. Elena's love for the child she never had becomes love for the child she helped protect. Martinez nodded, his eyes bright with emotion. She always said love finds ways to continue, to serve purposes we can't imagine when we're creating it. This blanket waited 3 years to find the baby it was meant to protect. As hope settled into Elena's blanket, contentment radiating from her tiny form, Dana reflected on how much had changed since that terrifying night when grief had overwhelmed her reason. The crisis that had brought Martinez into their lives had been Marcus's final gift, ensuring that she and Hope would never truly be alone. "I've been thinking about the future," Dana said, as they watched Hope sleep peacefully in her carrier, surrounded by the evidence of community love. "About what Marcus would want for Hope, what kind of life he was imagining when he made all those careful plans." "What conclusion have you reached?" Martinez asked, his interest both professional and personal. "That he wasn't just planning for her financial security or even her immediate safety," Dana replied thoughtfully. "He was planning for her emotional well-being, for the kind of family structure that would give her stability and love. I think he knew that love multiplies rather than diminishes when it's shared." Mrs. Chen looked up from her flower, arranging with a knowing smile. "Wise man understood that families come in many forms. Love creates bonds stronger than blood, connections that last beyond individual lifetimes." The insight felt like recognition of something Dana had been sensing but couldn't articulate. Marcus's sacrifice had created not just security for Hope, but the foundation for a new kind of family, one built on choice and caring rather than traditional definitions. "Martinez," Dana said carefully, "would you consider being Hope's godfather? Officially, I mean. Not just as the officer who helped with her birth, but as someone who commits to being part of her life as she grows up." The request hung in the air between them, carrying implications that went beyond simple friendship. Martinez studied Hope's sleeping face, seeing in her the future he and Elena had dreamed of, the family legacy that could continue through service to others. "I would be honored," he said simply. Elena always said the best way to honor lost love was to create more love in the world. Helping raise Hope feels like the most meaningful way to honor both Elena's memory and Marcus's sacrifice. As spring afternoon settled over Millbrook, Dana sat surrounded by her chosen family, Mrs. Chen offering grandmotherly wisdom, Martinez providing protective strength, Sarah maintaining connection to Marcus's memory, and Hope representing all. Their combined hopes for the future. The emergency call that had brought them together 9 months earlier had seemed like crisis at the time. But looking back, Dana understood it had been revelation. The moment when love found new ways to express itself, when loss transformed into foundation for unexpected joy. Hope, Elena Crenshaw, would grow up knowing she was wanted before she was born, protected by love that transcended death, and surrounded by a family created through grace rather than genetics. Marcus's legacy lived not just in his daughter's DNA, but in the community he had inadvertently created through his final act of love, ensuring that the mother of his child would never face the future alone.